Hello, BookTube. Hello, friends. Welcome to Lizziefaye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth. And it is pretty rare for me to sit down and do a video. This is not my normal space to film. I'm sitting at my dining table with the pantry behind me. No books behind me today because they're all out here in front of me on my dining table. Because today I want to recap my 60 by 60 project. And all together, it involves about 70 books, even though my goal was to read 60 books. By the time I turned 60, I had a few that I wasn't able to get on audio, so I've added in some alternates, and I have a few extras that I read because of something I read for my 60 by 60 challenge. So altogether, I've got about 70 books here, and this might take a little while. So if you are just sitting and watching, go ahead and take a walk or something while you listen to this, or, do some other activity like washing your dishes or something like that, because I would feel really bad if this takes almost an hour and you are not getting something accomplished at the same time. So please feel free to let me know in the comments what you're doing while you are listening to or watching this video. If you just want to sit and watch it, that's fine too, because I am going to show you the books. I have all the physical books right here with me that I'm going to talk about today. And if you have any questions about any of them that I don't answer in the video, then let's chat in the comments, because I started this project last July. So quite a few of these books were ones that I read and listened to several months ago. It has taken me more than a year to get this all done. It started out because I had been trying to do the read your own books challenge or read your own shelf challenge. I can't even think now what Ollie called it, but Ollie from the channel Ollie started this challenge to read X number of books before you bought any more. Well, I tried that for a little while and that didn't work for me, but I still acknowledged the fact that I needed to read books that I own. So these 60 books are part of a larger project to get through as many of the books that I already own so that I can unhaul them. And the majority of these books will be traded in at the bookstore where I work, and a few will be put on eBay. I've got some author lots and series lots and things like that I'll go ahead and list on eBay. But the majority will go to the bookstore, and just a couple are ones that I am going to plan to keep and possibly reread. So let's just get started. Now, I've been sitting here for probably about an hour, just kind of working through these, making sure I had them all. I went back and I watched my original video where I showed what I said was 62 books, but I went through the list a couple of times and I think I only showed you 61 books. And I have all 61 of those here, plus some alternates that I ended up reading instead, because there were 6 of the original 61 books that I either DNF'd or could not get at all on audio, or could only get an abridged version of on audio. The idea of this project was to pick a bunch of books off my shelves that I thought I could unhaul, that I could get on audio, and listen to them as quickly as I could, and then from there decide if they were worth keeping and rereading, or, was just listening to them on audio enough? Did I need to, have them on my shelves for a very long time while I was waiting to be, to read them or whatever? So I ended up finding 10 5-star books for me. However, only 2 of those books are books that I'm going to keep and possibly reread. But even though I rated 8 other books 5 stars, I still don't think that they're books I will reread. And if I ever do want to reread them, I'm sure I can find them again. So that's kind of my thinking on the subject. Then there is a book that I only rated 4 stars that I'm going to keep because it's part of a bigger collection. It's part of a collection that I have of a particular author, and I have not read most of them yet. So I'm going to keep that one simply because I'm going to read more by that author, and then I'll decide if I'm going to let them go or not. Okay, so let's get started. I've got my Kindle here with Goodreads on it in case I need to refer back to that. I've got my notes here. I have my glasses. I've even got a pencil in case I think of something else that I need to write down or say. And I'm surrounded by books. So let me first just start with a few statistics. As I said, I started out with 61 books and I pulled in 5 alternates because there were 2 that I could not get at all. And so let's just go ahead and take those out right now. I could not get on audio 72-Hour Hold by B.B. Moore Campbell. Now, my husband read this and he doesn't think that I will like this. He read this several years ago because it is about a family that has a teenage child who has some special needs. They are bipolar and they tend to get violent. And I think that maybe they were Baker acted or something like that. And, because we have a special needs daughter who's in her 20s now, I think my husband thought that I would not like how this was handled. And I may not, but I'm still curious enough about it to hang on to it. I do want to read it. And at some point, I saw that I could get it on audio, and that's why it ended up in this box. But then, things come and go, things change. And last time I checked, I could not get this on any of my library apps or any of the apps that I subscribe to or anything like that. I'm sure that it still exists out there on audio somewhere, but for right now, I'm not going to be able to get it, and I'm going to hang on to it. And then the other one that I couldn't get is by Elizabeth Berg. Now, I ended up reading 11 books by Elizabeth Berg for this challenge. And I have 3 more on my shelves that I have not read or listened to yet. And this is one of them, Home Safe. I did put this in my original list because, again, at some point I thought that I could get it on audio, but it turns out that I could not. However, I did pull in an alternate that I did not mention in my original list, and this is The Last Time I Saw You. I was able to listen to this on CD from my library. And even though I only rated it 3 stars, it's still another one I could check off the list. And I discovered that my library also has this one, Dream When You're Feeling Blue. So I did not get around to getting this one done for this challenge, but just today I put that CD set on hold from the library, and I am going to listen to that one very soon. Just finished up a Reacher book, and so my CD player is empty, and I am going to listen to this one and check one more Elizabeth Berg book off my list. Now, I also have another one on my shelf that I was not able to find anywhere on audio, and I'm going to hang on to it for now as well. Once Upon a Time, There Was You. This sounds really interesting. It's about a divorced couple potentially getting back together. So I think that sounds like it's worth, hanging on to and check it out. Even though Elizabeth Berg now is an author that's kind of hit and miss for me, her books ran the gamut from a 2-star rating to a 5-star rating. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes what my 10 books were that I rated 5 stars in this project. And there's 2 of them that I rated 5 stars. But there's also one that I rated 2 stars. I did a whole video about the original 10 books that I listened to by Elizabeth Berg. So if you want to check that out, I'll put it up here in a card and also link it down below. I was originally drawn to her books because of the covers. Most of her covers are absolutely stunning. Here's one here of fabric. So many of them are very homey looking, very domestic. And that is what she writes mainly, is women's fiction, domestic family drama, things like that. But I just love these covers. All right, I didn't mean to get off on Elizabeth Burke. I started out to show you the 6 books that I was not able to complete that were from my original list. So those were the 2 that I could not get at all. Now I have 2 others here that I could only find abridged versions of on audio. This is a book of 12 thrilling tales by Louisa May Alcott called A Whisper in the Dark. Somehow I missed the actual title of the book when I showed this in my original video. This has 12 short stories in it, and the only audio version that I could find that was anything like this had maybe 5 or 6 of these stories in it. And I just didn't have time to sit down and read the rest. I wasn't sure what was left out and what wasn't, and the audiobook just didn't follow along with this book close enough that I could feel like I was actually completing this book. It's a chunky book, but I'm going to hang on to this one and hopefully be able to read this one at another time. The other thing was that I tried listening to it on audio. One of the stories I kept starting and restarting, and I just could not get it. I couldn't get it on audio. So this is definitely going to need to be a book that I read in print. And then another one that I could only find an abridged version of was by Kay Gibbons, called On the Occasion of My Last Afternoon. Now, I've read another book by her that I thought was very enjoyable, and I am really interested in reading this one. And I might try to, at some point, check out the audiobook again and maybe listen along to the parts that are in here and then kind of pick up in the middle, sort of listen along as I read this. But I just, again, didn't have time to do that during this time frame. And then I have 2 books that I did not finish. One of them I only got barely started in, and I ended up not giving it a rating because I only got a tiny way into it, and I just decided it was not for me. Now, this has been recommended to me, and my sister also gave this to me, but this is not for me. This is called Lost and Found Sisters by Jill Shalvis. I just got really turned off right in the beginning by a nickname. They kept calling someone a nickname, and the whole thing was just crass. The part that I heard, the nickname had something to do with it was either a female body part or something sexual. I don't know, but it just turned me off from the beginning. And I thought, why am I planning to torture myself with this book? I am not going to read this. And I was listening to it on Everand. And so, it may have counted against me in the algorithms of, how many they allow you to have in a month and all of that. It's never really clear, but I didn't care. I just was not going to listen to it. So I took it off my saved list, and I'm going to let this go for sure. And then the other one that I DNF'd, I got a little farther into. I think I marked the place where I stopped because I was listening on audio, and at the moment I got to this particular part, I got so angry. I just DNF'd it immediately. I think I was in the car listening. I was on my way back from the post office, as I recall, and I heard what I heard, and I thought, nuh-uh, no, absolutely not. I got to page 55, and the book is Things I Want My Daughters to Know by Elizabeth Noble. It's too bad that this author's name is Elizabeth, which means consecrated to God. Of course, I happen to know that that's the meaning of that name because that's my name. However, there was a very blasphemous statement made in here, and I was so offended by it that I was just not going to go any farther. I don't remember if in my wrap-up for the month I read this quote or not, but basically it's made up of letters and diary entries that this woman who is dying is leaving to her daughters. And she's not a real likable person to begin with, as I recall. But what she's trying to say to her daughters is not inherently wrong, but the way she says it and the way she words it, I was just, She's basically telling her daughters that they should do something that they love to do, that work should be meaningful and something that you enjoy doing, and all of that. But she gets down to the end of this letter and she says this: "Whoever was the fool who decided that we should work for 6 days and rest for one? But if you're doing something you love, you'll be okay." Okay, everybody knows that it was God who worked for 6 days and rested for one. So is she calling God a fool? That is just uncalled for and dangerous. I mean, honestly, what a dangerous thing to say. Y'all know I'm a Christian, and I can be open-minded, and I can be tolerant, and forgiving, and give a lot of grace. But that statement right there was maddening. So, this book is going out of my house. I didn't even want to keep it in my house long enough for this video, but I did because I wanted to be able to share with you that little tidbit. So, those are definitely going. So here are the rest of the books that I pulled in as alternates. I already mentioned this Elizabeth Berg book. So most of these books are books that came off one particular shelf in my house. The majority of them are women's fiction or historical fiction, with a few exceptions. And so a couple of these are also in that category. But three of them are books that were just kind of laying around my house and other places, needing to be read, waiting to get read. And at the point when I was looking for some alternates, I happened to discover that these were all available to me on audio. And so I added them to the list. So one of them is probably considered a children's classic, even though it's very chunky. It was originally written for children. It does have some adult topics, some political things, and all of that. But this is Watership Down by Richard Adams. I absolutely loved this. And I believe this is Sonia's favorite book. My friend Sonia from the channel Sonia with an I, as soon as she heard that I was reading this, she's like, "Oh, that's my favorite book." And I can see why. It's amazing. Then one of only two nonfiction books that I read for this challenge is Night by Elie Wiesel. This is very dark, and it is based on his experiences during the Holocaust, and I think it's really a must-read for anyone, especially anyone who's interested in the Holocaust and learning about it. Very compelling and sad. Then this one I've been hearing about for quite some time. This kind of gets some mixed reviews. It's a dystopian book, but I was just curious about it. It's The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I love a good dystopian book, and this was not my favorite dystopian book by any means, but it was definitely worth reading, and I'm glad that I did. It's basically about a father and son trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic world, and I'm glad that I read it. And then the fifth alternate here is one that I actually just picked up last year on my trip because it's an author that I am reading and not necessarily collecting, but it is an author that I want to read to zero. And I actually already had two other books by her in my 60 by 60 challenge, and that is Jennifer Chiaverini. So I read or listened to Fates and Traitors. This is a novel about John Wilkes Booth, and this was super interesting, very compelling. And of course, John Wilkes Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln. This is his story, and I thought it was very good. Now, this is a large print copy, so it looks chunkier than it really needs to be, but I'm definitely going to trade this in at the bookstore because we are always looking for large print books. We sell a fair number of large print books, and I know that they will appreciate having this one there. In fact, a couple of others in this project are large print books, so I'm going to be happy to be able to take these in and get some store credit for them. Okay, so a few other little tidbits about this project. I mentioned that I have about 70 books around me. That's because there were some I couldn't get and the alternates I pulled in. And also I have at least 5 other books here that I read because of books that I was reading for this project. So I just figured I'd bring those in here too. Then altogether, of the 60 books that I finished in this challenge, there were a total of 40 authors. And of the 40 authors, 24 of them were new to me authors. And then my most read author was, of course, Elizabeth Berg. I read 11 books by her in this challenge. I also had 4 authors that I read 3 books by. I read 3 books by Jennifer Severini, 3 by Sandra Dallas, 3 by Sharon Owens, and 3 by Karen Gillespie. Then I had 2 other authors that I read 2 books by. One was Louisa May Alcott. Of course, I originally set out to read 3 of hers, and I only read 2. And then I read 2 books by Erlene Fowler. Oh, and then I also read 2 books by Kate Morton. And then all the other authors I just read 1 book by. So let's talk about ratings. Now, I think I mentioned that I rated 10 books 5 stars. I'm pretty generous with my 5 stars and my 4 stars. So 4 and 5 stars made up over 50% of this challenge. In fact, there were 30 books that I rated 4 stars. There were 18 that I rated 3 stars, 2 that I rated 2 stars. So there you have that. Of the 24 new to me authors, there are 2 that I definitely want to read more books by. One of them is Paula Mounier, and I read A Borrowing of Bones. This is book 1 in the Mercy Carr series. I thought this was excellent. Mercy Carr had a fiance who was a military policeman, and his dog Elvis, they were on a job, and her fiance was killed, and Elvis survived. So now the dog Elvis has PTSD, and Mercy has adopted him. Of course, she's grieving her fiance, but she has adopted Elvis, and together they are moving forward through life, and I'm assuming that they are going to encounter various crimes and mysteries and things like that. This I thought was very good, and I was happy to see that I think most of this series, if not all of it, is on audio on Everand. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to upgrade my subscription to listen to them or not, but I did really enjoy this first book. So that was one of my 5-star books. Another one of my 5-star books that I definitely want to read more books by is Charlotte Hubbard. She writes a lot of Amish fiction, and this one is called A Mother's Gift. There was another audiobook by Charlotte Hubbard on Audible Plus when I was listening to this one, and I had really wanted to listen to it too, but it was expiring, and I wasn't able to get to it in time, but I think it may be on Hoopla. So I definitely want to read more Charlotte Hubbard books. I thought this was absolutely wonderful, and like I said, I rated it 5 stars. Now, I have another new to me author that I want to read more books by. In fact, I already did read a whole trilogy by her. In fact, the very last book I read for this challenge was this month in September, Lighthouse by Eugenia Price. And I went on then and listened to the rest of the trilogy. It's the St. Simon's trilogy. Book 2 is New Moon Rising, and book 3 is The Beloved Invader. Now, Beloved Invader was the first one that she wrote, even though chronologically it's the last book in the trilogy. I really did enjoy these books, even though I rated them all 4 stars. They were just slow burns, slow, gentle reads, and just didn't bowl me over, but I still really enjoyed them, and I'm very much looking forward to reading more by Eugenia Price. So even though I didn't rate these 5 stars, I still would recommend them. I thought they were excellent. They are set on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. They are set before, during, and after the Civil War. And I thought they were very compelling, very good, and I'm excited that I finally have read some Eugenia Price. Okay, so I want to show you my top 10, my 10 books from this 60 by 60 challenge that I rated 5 stars. Probably my favorite book. I know Sonia is going to be excited about this because my favorite book of this challenge turned out to be Watership Down. This was amazing and excellent. I listened to it on audio like I did all the others, but I'm going to keep this book because I do want to reread it. And I think this could potentially be a book that I would sit and reread a couple more times in my life, much like I have read and reread Lord of the Rings. Every few years, I'm compelled to pick them up and reread them, and I feel the same about this book. So I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was wonderful. If you don't know, if you've never read it, it's about rabbits and about all of the politics and the relationships of the rabbits. It's kind of fantastical because the rabbits have a voice, but it's just so good. I highly recommend it. And then the other 5-star book that I'm going to keep, I wouldn't necessarily say it's my next favorite, but it was definitely compelling. I'm glad that I had it on audio because I think I would have gotten bogged down in the density of it. It is a very dense book, but it was very compelling. This is The Worst Hard Time by Timothy Egan. This is a nonfiction book about the Dust Bowl. And because I'm from Oklahoma, even though I am from Southeast Oklahoma, which was not officially considered part of the Dust Bowl, I'm sure they were still affected by it. My parents were alive then. They were young children, and I'm sure that they had relatives and people that they knew who were even affected more by it than they were. And I didn't even realize it till today that there are photos in here. So I have actually turned through this whole book just today, and I'm thinking that I would like to sit down with it again, possibly with the audio in my ear, and just kind of follow along, just appreciate it and see the photos as I go along. And I think I would really enjoy it. But this was a book that my sister gave me a couple of years ago, and she really enjoyed it, and I thought it was excellent as well. So let me show you my other top 10 in no certain order. I've already mentioned A Borrowing of Bones. I rated this one 5 stars. I thought it was excellent. And then I've already shown you this one, A Mother's Gift by Charlotte Hubbard. This one is an Amish book. It's very inspirational, and I thought it was very, very good. Then I have a couple of historical books that I really enjoyed. This is one I think my sister gave me. Charlotte, if you're watching this, if you didn't give me this, then I need to give this to you to read it. The Sewing Machine by Natalie Fergie was so good. It followed a sewing machine through history and through all of its different owners and what it was used for. And it was so good. I really, really loved it. And then another one that is historical is by Kristen Harmel. We had read another book by her for book club and really enjoyed that. And I thought this one was excellent. I believe this one had a dual timeline, but it's called When We Meet Again. And I thought it was excellent. Then I read a romance by Laura Bradford. It's an Amish romance. And I had another book by Laura Bradford in my box that I was thinking would be an alternate, but I never did add it to the list, and I kind of forgot about it. So today when I was going through everything, I found it. I can't even remember what it's called now because I've already put it back on the shelf. But anyway, I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to it because I would expect that it would be just as good. But this one is called Portrait of a Sister. It also is an Amish book, and I thought it was very, very good. I did not read very many children's books or books for young people in this project. In fact, I don't even know if I went through and told you the genres. I read 14 historical fiction books and then 32 that I would consider women's fiction or general fiction. I had 2 nonfiction books, and then I had 4 either fantasy or dystopian books, 2 mystery thrillers, and then only 6 that I would consider YA or middle grade. There's actually a trilogy by Elizabeth Berg that I'm going to show you in a minute that could be YA, but I'm pretty sure it's still classified as an adult trilogy. Anyway, but one of the middle grade books that I read is also part of a series, and it caused me to reread the first book, which is The One and Only Ivan, and I actually had read One and Only Ivan in print when I first read it, and then I listened to it on audio, and then I went on and listened to this one on audio. It is narrated by Danny DeVito, and it was so good. I am going to keep this one. I think I forgot to add this to my keep stack, but I am going to keep this one because I have at least 2 of the other books. It's a series of 4. I think I'm still needing a copy of The One and Only Ruby, but this one, The One and Only Bob, is not really exactly written in verse like Ivan is, but it's still got very few words on a page, and I definitely want to go back and read this one in print. But just for the experience of hearing the Danny DeVito audiobook, I put it in my 60 by 60 challenge so that I would get to it already, because I've had this for quite a while. And I loved One and Only Ivan, so I knew I was going to love this one too. And it's very cute. So if you're wondering, if you've not read this, Bob is this little dog right here. Ivan is the gorilla, Bob is the dog, and Ruby is the elephant. So book 3 is The One and Only Ruby, and then the 4th book is called One and Only Family. Now, I had 2 other 5-star books, and they are books by Elizabeth Berg. One of them is a standalone. It's called The Art of Mending. And of course, the idea of mending clothes is really just kind of an analogy for mending our lives and our relationships and things like that. But I really enjoyed this one. And of all the Elizabeth Berg books that I read, this one and one other one are my top recommendations. The other book that I rated 5 stars to is the 3rd book in a trilogy. It's called True to Form, and it's book 3 in the Katie Nash trilogy. So of course I would never recommend that you read book 3 in a trilogy without reading the first 2 books, and especially not this one, because this trilogy about Katie Nash is really just one big story about Katie, and each of the 3 books are really not very long. So the first book is called Durable Goods. Now, I was a little worried that this book was going to have some child abuse and things like that. And in a way it does, but it's more of an emotional abuse, and it's really not as bad as some things I've read. So if abuse, emotional abuse and child abuse is a trigger for you, just know that you could probably still read this and be fine. Katie Nash is a young girl, and really, I think this trilogy would be fine classified as a YA trilogy. It is about a young girl. So, if I saw these books on a YA shelf, I would not argue with that. But if I saw them on an adult shelf, I would say, yeah, that's fine too, because adults can really enjoy these books. Anyway, Durable Goods is first, and then Joy School is second. And then True to Form was my favorite book of the trilogy because, like I said, I rated it 5 stars. I rated the other 2 4 stars. It's an excellent trilogy. And if you're going to pick up anything by Elizabeth Berg, pick up the Katie Nash trilogy or The Art of Mending. I think I've mentioned now all of my 5-star reads in this project. If you want to see all the books in the project, you can go back to my original video where I show the original 61 books that I set out to read, and then today in this video I've shown you the ones that I have pulled in and the ones I took out. All of the other books in that original video I did listen to on audio, and with the exceptions of the ones that I have told you that I am probably going to keep and read again or keep because they're part of a collection, I'm satisfied with listening to the audio. Some people have criticized me and said, if you're going through those audiobooks so fast, how can you really appreciate the book? How can you get anything out of it? And while it's very true that sometimes audiobooks don't stick with me as well as reading a book in print, the fact of the matter is that I have more books than I can ever sit and read in my lifetime, unread books. And this is the only way that I am going to get through as many as I can, is by listening to the ones that I can get on audio. So I figured if there were books that I enjoyed enough to keep and reread again, that would always be an option, and I've shown you those. So all the rest of these I'm going to let go. Now, I hesitate to get negative in videos. That's really not what I'm about. In fact, sometimes it kind of comes back to bite me. I've done a total of 1 or 2 completely negative videos in my YouTube career, and I got some pretty bad comments, some pretty negative comments back. So I'm not going to get super negative. So if you want to see the two that I rated 2 stars, I'm not going to go into in-depth discussion of them, but these were the two that were my least liked books, other than the two that I DNF'd. One of them was an Elizabeth Berg book called Tapestry of Fortunes. I only rated this one 2 stars. I did not like it. I rated several of hers 3 stars, but this was the one that I liked the least. And then my other 2-star book was The Knitting Circle by Anne Hood. This just had too much information. It was these women sitting around. I think they kind of use knitting as therapy, and that in and of itself is fine, but they just talked about topics that I was uncomfortable with, and so I just didn't care for it. Now, I did do a whole video about books about knitting and books that relate to knitting, because I did read a few different knitting themed books as a part of this challenge. I can't remember if in that video I mentioned any other knitting related books or not, but there are some great books out there that have knitting as an ongoing theme. Debbie Maycomber is one who knits and writes about knitting. I have really enjoyed some of the Maggie Sefton knitting mysteries. So there are quite a few books out there. Now, there have been others I've read that I didn't care for, like The Friday Night Knitting Club by Kate Jacobs. So, you know, there's plenty out there, but this one was definitely not one that was for me. So I think that's all I'm going to share with you today about this project. I've got all the books here. I'm debating right now about whether to show you all the books or just let it go at that. I had in mind that I would show them all to you again. However, this has already gone on for too long as it is, and I think I'm going to stop here. Jump in here because I realized that there is a way to show you all 60 books without holding them up individually. I can just display them on my table and then just kind of take a slow-mo video of it, and then that way I won't feel silly for having saved all of them for this video. That way I can at least say I showed them to you. So what's in front are the ones that I am keeping for now. These two, because I would like to reread those at some point. The Eugenie Price book, because I have a Eugenie Price collection, and even though I finished that trilogy, I am going to keep at least one of all of her books for now. I do have some duplicates, and it's a long story of how I got all the Eugenie Price books and the duplicates. And I am going to list some on eBay and possibly share some with friends. But anyway, for now, I'm keeping at least one of each. And then those two series right there, I'm still reading. I have not gotten book 3 of the Chicks with Sticks series. And so I'm going to hang on to the first 2. That's book 2 I had already read, and then I reread the first one. And then the One and Only Bob I talked about earlier, I've still got 2 more in that series to read. So then that stack there are the kind of fantasy, dystopian, mystery thriller books. There's not as many of them. This stack is, I think, mostly historical fiction. And then I believe that all the rest are general fiction and women's fiction. There might be some historical mixed in there. Oh, and then there's a couple of children's classics there too. The Louisa May Alcott and the Five Little Peppers. Okay, so now back to the wrap-up of the video. If you are curious about any of the books that I read in this project, you can go back to see the original video where I showed all of them, and please feel free to ask me, what I thought about any one particular book. You can also be my friend on Goodreads. I have a link to my Goodreads page in the description of every single one of my videos. So please do go on Goodreads and send me a friend request. I would love that. And then you'll be able to see exactly what I rated each book. I did not do a lot of reviews. I have gotten really lazy about writing reviews, but I do have a shelf on my Goodreads called 60 by 60. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I have enjoyed this project, and I am excited about future projects. I definitely like the idea of combing through my shelves, finding what I can get on audio and listening to those so that I can let them go. Because I have way more books than will fit on my shelves, and I really want to just, gradually pare down what I own and let them go to someone else who can also read and appreciate them. So that is all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.